Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Financial Issues. We're live this March the 6th, 2025. I'm here with you, as well as Sam Case, the Studio A team. We're delighted to be here with you. In for Shannon for the whole show today. Happy to be here on Financial Issues. Join the conversation, folks. 610-363-1110. Again, 610-363-1110. Welcome to all of you listening on the radio, watching on the TV outlets, social media, and of course, our live chat on financialissues.org/live. That's my favorite place. If you're going to watch the show anywhere, watch it on financialissues.org/live, because you can join the live chat there. But if you're listening on a radio outlet or watching on a TV outlet as well, we're so grateful that you found us. If you're watching on the app as well, maybe you have the FISM phone app. Great to see you all today. Happy to be here with you. On today's show, again, your calls and questions, 610-363-1110. Also, real interesting stuff here. The left is apparently not taking Target's abandonment of DEI so well. Interestingly enough,
a tad betrayed.
Yeah,
Seth.
That's exactly right. They absolutely do. By the way, Sam, good to see you. I forgot to bring Sam into the show, but Sam is here as well. Yes, they do feel a little bit betrayed.
As always.
Yes, absolutely. You know, Sam, it was interesting. The last decade kind of dominated by a conservative-driven boycott of the big Twin Cities retail giant. Now, apparently, it's the left's turn. They have decided to boycott Target. Target just can't get your break here, it seems.
How the turntables turn.
I know, that's exactly right. We'll try to make some sense of this new liberal-fueled boycott of Target. Interesting stuff. Also, there's another big car dealership that is coming to the table with the Trump administration with these tariffs and moving production to the United States. I think that's more of Trump playing 4D chess there. We'll talk about that later on the program as well. It's great to be here with you today, folks. Right off the bat, though, I do want to say thank you all to everyone who has given to our Crossroads Kids Club March campaign, Out of Darkness. We're bringing children out of darkness and into the light of the gospel. I want to give some shout outs here. Ann from Alabama, who is a regular on the chat. Same with Bob in New Jersey. Bob, I see you on the chat as well. And Dennis from California, a dear friend of ours, Dennis and Patty. Appreciate you guys giving. There's been many more. We are still a pretty long distance away from our goal, though, folks. We want to sponsor 100 children to be able to allow them to partake in a Crossroads Kids Club program. One child costs $384. If you can give that much, that's awesome. If you can give more and sponsor several children, that is fantastic as well. And if you can only give less, that's wonderful too. I'm not going to tell you what amount to give. I'm going to give you suggestions. The amount that you choose to give, if you do, is between you and the Lord. A good, kind of main target, as we were talking about there, is $384, sponsors one child for 1 year. And every single dollar that we provide for this campaign over the next week and a half will be matched by an anonymous donor. So I do hope you'll consider giving today, folks. ReachOurSchools.com is the place to go. ReachOurSchools.com. We do also have a little QR code on the screen. You can put your phone up to that QR code. Takes you right to where you can give securely. Now, first and foremost, folks, interesting stuff. We have a tariff deal with Mexico and China that was in talks yesterday. We don't have any updates on it right now, but it is coming soon. Sam, what can you tell us about the specifics of this, if it will happen?
Oh, I'm sure that the markets are rather disappointed about this, though, because Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick the other day gave us a little bit of a tease, saying Trump could announce a trade deal with Mexico and Canada. Perhaps, I think he said yesterday was when he thought it was going to happen. It didn't happen yet, but here he is on Fox Business explaining what that would look like.
Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today, trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way.
So there you go. There is Lutnick. I feel like, Seth, it's been the Lutnick show the last couple days, but he is the tariff guy in the Trump administration. So he is the guy we turn to with all these updates. You hear him saying there that we're not going to be pausing these tariffs and putting them on and off as we did last month. If there is a deal to be had, this is going to be a permanent deal. We'll just have to wait and see what that looks like, though.
Yeah, interesting stuff, Sam. The tariffs have been dominating the financial news cycle, which is part of why we're presenting so much of this information to you here, folks, because this really is kind of the big news. It's driving what's happening in the markets as well. I think it's important for you folks, speaking of news, keep watching Financial Issues, because I really do believe, Sam, and I know I'm sounding self-serving when I say this, but I think we present the financial news in a way that you can trust, in an honest way. The only bias that we have, if we have one, you can call it a bias, is that we're Christians, and that drives our conservative worldview. It starts in the biblical worldview, but we're going to give you the truth. I tell you that, folks, because if you were to go on to, say, CNBC this morning, and you were to look at any news about the tariffs, you would probably find complaining, chaos. It's pretty much always, we don't like this. Trump did this about the tariffs. Here's why businesses are going to be upset by it. Here's why the markets are not going to like it, and so on and so forth. You've got to see, folks, and I think this is what President Trump is doing here, the long game. We're playing 4D chess here, right, Sam? This is not to be looked at in a vacuum of today. If you hyper-focused, and this is true with the markets too, if you hyper-focus on one day. This is really
true of all news in general.
It's exactly
you can catastrophize about just about any
you absolutely
news story
can.
If you wanted to, if you're only looking at it in terms of here and right now.
Absolutely. You can throw yourself into a tizzy and give yourself, high blood pressure really easily if you do that. Make sure, folks, that as you're watching the news cycle, you're keeping a level head about you. The scripture actually talks about this, having a sound mind. That's one of the virtues of a Christian is God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And having a sound mind when you look at the news cycle, I think is really good, especially with this stuff, as it seems like a lot of major news outlets might not have so sound of minds as they report this. So, Sam, what else is going on here? I know, the big places we're focusing on are our neighbors to the north and south, Canada and Mexico, but then also China, really our biggest enemy, I think, on the world stage. What's going on with China and their response to these tariffs?
Yeah, important to note that in all likelihood, the tariffs against Mexico and Canada are going to come off at some point. Maybe not right now, but as Lutnick is saying, probably very soon. That's not the case with China. As you said, China is our enemy. Donald Trump understands this, and these tariffs are not just economic in nature. It's also meant to be, in a way, a type of a Cold War response to the economic undermining that China's been doing. Well, as a result, a Chinese foreign ministry has issued a threatening message against the U.S. as of Wednesday about Trump's tariffs, which are currently at 20% across the board. Trump says that could go even higher in the coming days. They said if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight until the end. So pretty strong statement from China there. This comes as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said earlier this week that China will eat any tariffs that go on. That remains to be seen if that's actually true, because China unveiled on Tuesday new 10% and 15% tariffs on U.S. goods like chicken, wheat, soybeans, and beef. Bessent might still be right, however, because they're not matching the U.S. tariff for tariff, if you'll notice. They're being much more cautious than what the U.S. is doing. We're using across-the-board tariffs, so no matter what the good is coming from China, that's going to get a tariff. China's being a lot more targeted, so it could be that Bessent's right, and they understand that, unlike us, they cannot put a sweeping tariff on everything because they're much more reliant on exports than we are.
Yep. Sam, I wonder if China was surprised at all by the show of strength that the United States has shown in the last, month and a half or so. Because remember, China's used to what we've seen in the last 4 years. And I can't help but think that, this would have been markedly different, not only for my own personal sanity to see China respond in this way. Had it been 2 or 3 years ago, I'd be a little concerned. But because we have the president that we have now, I'm a little more calm about this. I laughed when I read this, Sam, because it reminded me of from the Chronicles of Narnia when the White Witch says, if it's a war Aslan wants, it's a war he shall get. And I feel like that's kind of communist China right here.
And of course, we should correct ourselves. It's China.
That's right,
to
China.
Quote a great man.
Absolutely right. So not as concerning to me now. I never like any type of threat of war, which I guess technically China includes that there, what their spokesman said. If it's a tariff war, trade war, or any other type of war, I guess you could read that as this could be any other type. I don't really think China maybe means all-out war. I don't think they would be
I don't think that's what they mean either. You got to remember, with an authoritarian regime like China, they have to sound tough. So this isn't too surprising. Right. You knew there was going to be some kind of response, because Xi Jinping has to look like he's retaliating in some way, even if, as I said, it's much more reserved than going whole hog on this thing. They are kind of holding it close to their vest and not willing to go into an all-out trade war with the U.S. just yet.
For sure. And this is classic Sam Cold War stuff. We saw the same thing throughout the second half of the 20th century between the United States and the Soviet Union. China's our new Cold War enemy, so you're going to have a trade war with your Cold War enemy. You're going to have a technological arms race, as we're seeing with China. It's different than it was with Russia back in the day. That was more space and physical arms, nuclear weapons. There's still the nuclear weapons aspect here, but there's also the aspect of AI and technology, all part of being in a Cold War, which I do think we are in one with China, by the way. Interesting stuff all around, folks. Sam, thank you for that. Coming up on the other side of this break, folks, we'll get to the markets, see what they did. They had a good day yesterday, so we'll take a look at that. Also, that real fascinating Target headline, the ping pong between getting boycotted by the right and then now the left. Interesting stuff there. All on financial issues. Hope you'll join us on the live chat. It's lively today as usual. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere. How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
Every day, a child walks into school carrying more than just a backpack. This child carries the weight of loneliness and spiritual darkness. But there is hope.
Crossroads is amazing. You can learn all kinds of things about God. That He loves all of us. He pays for our sins.
By sponsoring a child, you could help them discover Jesus. Go now to reachOurSchools.com and bring the light of Christ into the life of a child. That's reachOurSchools.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Well, folks, as always, the live chat is hopping this morning. Good to see so many of you. James, Lisa, George, Eddie. Who else is on there? Dave and Darlene, Alan. Great to see you guys today. I'm thrilled to have you on Financial Issues. Of course, all the rest of you, welcome to you as well. Again, the best place to catch our show, I think, really is financialissues.org/live. You'll never lose us there. There's still, I guess, an outside chance that YouTube could kick us off, and Facebook as well, although they seem to be moving in a more conservative direction anyway. But you're always safe on that live chat and on the app as well. So let's move to the markets now, folks. So yesterday, it was a stormy day overall, at least in the beginning. But by midday, investors weighed everything out and they determined that they would be moderately confident about it. So in early afternoon, the indices really went positive because of Howard Lutnick's announcement yesterday, seemed to bring peace to certain sectors, especially the automobile industry. Several auto manufacturing stocks rose in response. Then, around mid-afternoon, the markets really were happy when Trump announced a 1-month reprieve for automakers concerning the tariffs. So while we haven't had a Mexico or Canada deal yet, we do have a little bit of a reprieve for automakers. And so automaking stocks really seem to like that a lot. By late afternoon, market rebound was in full swing. They loved what they saw with the tariff news, the hope of reaching a trade deal with Canada and Mexico, which if you listened to the last segment, you heard there might still be some question marks with that, of course. But at any rate, the markets end of the day, very positive yesterday. Each of the major indices up above a percentage point. The Dow Jones, the S&P 500, each up about 1 1/10, and the NASDAQ was up about 1 1/2. Now, not the same story this morning, though, for the pre-markets at least. Everything is expecting to open in negative territory. The Dow down right around, it's almost a full percent down. The S&P 500 is over a full percent down, and the NASDAQ is over a full 1.5% down in the pre-markets. So that's what we're looking like to price in this morning when we do open up. Hey, quick reminder for you folks. This is a housekeeping thing, but I just want to make sure that you all know Megan is 39 weeks pregnant today, which is super exciting. What that means is literally now any day baby could come. So if I'm not on the show in an upcoming show, that is the reason why. You will know that. Be confident in that. You will be in great hands with Sam and Shanna when she's back and the rest of the team. So just know that
so every day Seth is waking up hearing it's the final countdown by Europe, just blaring in his ears because he knows it's coming.
It's the final countdown. So no baby today, so I'm here, which is exciting. So since I'm here, Sam, I'd love to get into this conversation with you about Target and this pro-DEI boycott swinging the other way. We saw a pro-conservative boycott just up until this past year, honestly. We probably had listeners who partook in that, and now it's swinging the other way. What can you tell us about this?
Well, black faith leaders, I mean, really, they're activists, left-wing activists masquerading as faith leaders, led by Atlanta area Reverend Jamal Bryant, are now calling for a 40-day boycott of Target for ending their DEI programs. You'll notice that start yesterday, which happens to coincide with the start of Lent. So they're outright politicizing the Christian holiday or season of Lent. Byron accused Target of turning its back on the black community by ending its DEI programs. And just for some background on who this guy is, he infamously endorsed abortion from the pulpit at a baby dedication service in June of 2022. So right around the overturning of Roe v. Wade, he said, this is really insane, Seth. He said, Christianity is and of itself pro-choice. Just despicable stuff, but that gives you an idea of just who this guy is. He really is an activist at heart. Interestingly enough, though, black business owners, they're the ones most opposed to this boycott because they're saying, wait a minute, we sell our stuff at Target, and if you're not shopping at Target, that means we're not making money. You're actually hurting black people with this boycott. Here's one of them expressing those concerns.
I am Melissa Butler. I am the founder and CEO of The Lip Bar. The Lip Bar has been in Target since 2017. And we are the largest black-owned makeup company in Target. So, of course, we were disappointed, just like many of you, when we learned that they were rolling back their DEI initiatives. But I do want to make sure that we are aware that, you know, by not shopping in these stores, you are also impacting the hundreds of black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses and, you know, brown person-owned businesses that are in these stores.
So what do you make of all of it, Seth? It's pretty juicy, though.
It's juicy stuff. I would love to have a conversation with this woman because she talks out both sides of her mouth, Sam. I mean, first she says, "Hey, I'm in favor of you know, basically it sounds like she's talking about being in favor of DEI and of those policies, but then she says, but you still have to shop. Like, please still shop here. You know, it's really nonsense. What a strange turn of events this is, Sam. Well, not long ago, it was our side who was boycotting Target, right? Like this was weeks ago. It wasn't like years ago. You know, it started probably 8 or 9 years ago, 2016.
We should sue them. We should say boycotting Target's our thing. That's our idea.
Thing. You're copying us, you copycats. No, I can't help, Sam, but think this also. I don't know if this new boycott is going to have the same lasting impact that the conservative-led boycott did. And I think it's because of sentiments like that woman just shared there. People are waking up. Even people who are pro DEI realize, okay, I still want you to shop there so that I can make a profit, so that like that it's common sense, folks. I really think so. Target has been through the ringer, haven't they? And by the way, I'm thankful for the impact of the conservative-led boycott. I'm not speaking this in any way to try to be overly sympathetic towards Target. A lot of what they've done to go through the ringer has been their fault. But nonetheless, they have been ping-pong back and forth. First, they're getting boycotted one side, now the other side. But it's interesting, Sam. I do think that this is a constant strategy of the left. What's happening here is to throw a poison gas cloud by making an issue about something other than what it is. So these black faith leaders that you mentioned are making a company, making a wise business decision, abandoning a business model that doesn't work, not based on merit or excellence, but based on arbitrary things or based on race or sex or sexual identity, things that at their core have nothing to do with the performance of an employee, for example. They are making this about those other things. And so it makes their argument sound like it's talking about something that's way more important than it actually is.
What's fascinating in that clip, I didn't play all of it, but she kind of says exactly what you say right there. She says that, a lot of these companies didn't believe in DEI to begin with, and in fact, it was bad for their business. She says that she's one of the few minority-owned businesses that actually did well under these DEI programs. Most of the products they launched didn't do well at all, and Target had to pull them because they weren't thinking about what was going to be a good product. All they were thinking about was the skin color of the person making the product, and that's just not a way you actually make money.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And the reality is Target abandoning DEI, I mean, I don't even want to have to say this, but I will say it because the conversation has gone there. It has nothing to do with race. Target is not racist for abandoning DEI. This is about a company realizing they made a tragic mistake, and it was their fault. They made a tragic mistake throughout the course from 2016 to 2023 or 2024. They realized their business strategy wasn't working, and so they changed. That was what it was. This is not about race at all. Folks, we need to be very aware of when people do this, because this tends to be a typical used rhetorical weapon of the left. What they'll do, and this, I'm not saying all of them do this, but a lot of them will do things like this. They'll call an anti-DEI movement racist, or they'll call pro-life initiatives hateful towards women. It's not what those things are. We have to realize what these things really are. And I think that will help us. It was interesting, Sam. I spoke with Jenna Ellis recently, and we're going to play this interview on an upcoming show. She made a great point. I think now this could be a good time for us to consider returning to shopping at Target, because now the other side is boycotting them for silly reasons. So a counterpunch to that would be, hey, let's go back and shop there. I do understand this might be a controversial thing, because there are probably many people in our audience who still feel a conviction. You know what? They made a huge mistake. I'm not going to reward them for it, so I'm still going to boycott them. Well, just keep in mind, you are also joining with many other people who are now boycotting them because they abandoned DEI. Sooner or later, Sam, we've talked about this. I think it is good for us to have a forgiving spirit when it comes to companies. If they do what we want them to do, it's good to reward them for that. I'm not saying you invest in the company. Please don't hear me say that. But if your conscience allows you to do it, I think it's an okay thing to do when we're talking about returning to shop at the company.
I mean, why should they even listen to you if you're doing a boycott and you have certain demands that you want the company to meet, and then they meet those demands and you say, well, I'm not going to shop with you anyway. They have no reason to listen to you at that point. They're just going to ignore you.
Yep. I think you're exactly right. What we want to see happen is what happened. Now, it didn't go fully. What we would love to see here at the ministry is Target become a biblically responsible company again. That would be awesome. That would be great to see that. That's simply not the case right now. Hopefully someday it will be. But there's a lot to think about with this, Sam. Last thing I'll say about this, Reverend Bryant said some shameful things. And I hesitate even to put the term reverend in front of his name, because I don't believe that, based on what he said in that quote that you quoted there, Sam, that would disqualify someone from being considered a pastor.
And to be clear, Seth, that was just one quote. There was a whole list of them. I had to pick just one of them. Most of them I probably couldn't even say on air. They were that despicable.
Yeah. I mean, we have to, again, I don't even want to have to say this, but no pastor of the Church of God promotes the killing of babies. That's stuff that a wolf promotes. a false teacher, someone who's not a Christian. They will promote things like that. A pastor does not. So this guy is not a pastor. Okay, let's put that out there. He may lead a church. He may have reverend in front of his name. He's not a true pastor. He's not a true shepherd. The God of the Bible actually hates the murder of babies. Let's just get that clear, okay? Folks, this is so important for us and for our strategy. Our strategy is all about investing in companies that do not support these things. We don't want to fund the murder of babies, okay? We don't want to fund children being fed a godless agenda that tells them that their gender can be whatever they want it to be. We want to fund companies that are doing good things, but really just companies that are in the business of business. If you're a widget factory, you're making widgets. That's good with us. If you're a hamburger company and you serve burgers, you're a restaurant, you flip good hamburgers, you cook good burgers, you make good milkshakes, things like that. So it's so important for us and for our strategy here, folks. I really do think so. And you know what? It does make sense with what we're talking about with this Crossroads Kids Club campaign right now. So important for us to keep an eye on the next generation and to bring them up to love and serve Jesus Christ with everything. That's why we're doing this campaign here. Again, reachOurSchools.com is the place to go if you want to learn more about that. Folks, if you have to leave us, hope you have a great day. For the rest of you, we got more financial issues coming up on the other side of this break. I sat down with Matt Armstrong recently to talk about the unique skill set of actually getting into the public schools in the first place. So you'll hear that interview coming up here on Financial Issues. We got more financial issues coming up right after this. Stick with us.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
Make a point. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you.
I know.
Every day, a child walks into school carrying more than just a backpack. This child carries the weight of loneliness, fear, and uncertainty, and spiritual darkness. But there is hope.
Crossroads is amazing. You can learn all kinds of things about God. That He loves all of us. He pays for our sins.
This Easter, be part of God's rescue plan by helping a school-aged child out of the darkness. By sponsoring a child, you could help them discover Jesus and put them on a path to a better future. Our goal is for the FISM audience to sponsor 100 children. As an added bonus, a generous donor has pledged to match up to $35,000. This means your gift will go twice as far. Go now to reachOurSchools.com and bring the light of Christ into the life of a child. That's reachOurSchools.com.
Folks, welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm Seth Udinsky here, and I've got a special treat for you folks. As you all know, we're in the midst of our Crossroads Kids Club campaign. We are trying to come alongside Crossroads Kids Club to bombard public schools with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I'm so thrilled for this opportunity and to tell you all about this also, folks. Just a reminder, our goal for this campaign is we want to raise $38,000 for Crossroads Kids Club, up to the point of $35,000. Let me tell you this, your gift will be doubled through a generous donor. So if you give to Crossroads Kids Club at all during this campaign, up to $35,000, that gift will be doubled. And also when you donate, of course, you'll be provided with the name of a child. You'll have the option to send a card as well and really magnify your impact. This is a great campaign, especially if you are a Christian and you care about reaching children in the public schools. I know I certainly do, and I'm Matt to be able to join me today. Matt, welcome back, brother. It's great to have you on the program.
Seth, it's always good to be with you, and thank you so much for your partnership in the gospel.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. It is an honor to do it. Matt, I really want to focus kind of the topic of our interview today on this idea of getting into the public schools physically. This is something that you guys have at Crossroads have been able to master this, and I'm so impressed about it. But the truth is, many Christians assume, and I was even a part of this as well, that sharing the gospel in public schools is nearly impossible because of various restrictions, legal restrictions, different things like that. We hear stories from people who say, hey, I have a kid in high school, and he said he wasn't allowed, he said that he was, not allowed to bring his Bible into school, not even allowed to pray. Is all of this true, Matt? And what are the actual rights of Christian groups when it comes to meeting in public schools?
Wow, that is a fantastic question, and you're absolutely right, because I think there's just a lot of confusion and just a lot of ignorance around what is legal and is not legal, and that is on both sides. I think that Christians don't really understand always what the legal rights are or what the best approaches are into the schools, but many school administrators don't understand what's legal and what's possible either. And so really bridging those, filling in those gaps of with the knowledge of what is permissible is really important. So as far as it goes, first of all, when we think about approaching a public school, I want to talk about both the Lord and the law. And so we think about, first of all, Colossians chapter 1 says that Jesus is supreme over all other authorities and rulers and powers, and that he holds it all together. And I think clearly what's in view there is all the systems and powers, even of the world structures. So I like to remember that Jesus is in charge of the public schools. He owns them. He's holding them together. Whether they acknowledge him or not, and many do not, but he's still Lord over them. But then we flip a few pages earlier in the scripture, and in Philippians chapter 2, it says that Jesus did not demand and cling to his rights as God, but he took the posture of a servant. And so when I approach a school, first of all, my theology is telling me Jesus is in charge, and we have a divine right. These are his schools. But if we're going to go in his way, we're going to go as servants. We're going to go not beating down the doors, but let's go in and how can we add value here? How can we serve and do that in the way of Jesus? So that's the first thing. The second thing is you asked about, is the law. And the Constitution of the United States and various Supreme Court decisions, really one of the landmark ones was 2001, Good News versus Milford Central School Districts, really opened the door for groups like Crossroads to use the space in the school after school on the same terms as any other group. So we can dive in a little bit more if you'd like, or other ways to engage schools.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic, Matt. So specifically now for Crossroads Kids Club, how have you guys now taken advantage of that legal ruling to be able to now get your foot in the door in public schools? You're there. How are you guys doing that?
Yeah. Well, so part of what the ruling established is that schools cannot discriminate based on a viewpoint. And the court specifically established that, quote unquote, religion is a viewpoint. So they can discriminate based on the nature or the substance of what you're offering, but not on the viewpoint that you're bringing. And so the way we approach it is that we position ourselves as a Christian character formation club. Now, for us, right, as believers, what is Christian character formation? It starts with evangelism. I need to have Christ in me. I need to have the Holy Spirit who transforms my character and my behavior and my life, right? So it's evangelism and discipleship. But if we talk about it as this is Christian character formation, there are a lot of organizations that are in schools all across our country that have a character formation purpose. Scouts, for example, Boys and Girls Clubs, just all kinds of organizations, local and national, that are in schools with a character formation mission. So the fact that we come and we're Christian, the Christian part, they're not allowed to discriminate against that viewpoint.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Now, talk for just a second, Matt, about some of the challenges that you faced with bringing Crossroads into these public schools, and how have you guys been able to overcome these?
Yeah, good question. I mean, there's several challenges. With the schools in particular, the biggest challenge tends to be ignorance, as we talked about, as it is on the side of believers too, that they, most principals, probably 80% plus, don't really understand the nuances or the law that we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
And so honestly, being a principal is a very hard job. In many cases, they're dealing with a unionized workforce, staff they didn't hire, they can't fire, a curriculum that's imposed on it. I mean, it's really difficult. And they have all this accountability for the test scores and so on. And so they're not looking for extra challenges or difficulties. So what I found is that most often, if a Christian group wants to go into school, they approach the principal first. And that's a really big tactical mistake, because again, maybe don't know fully what the law is, and they're just thinking this is just going to create controversy and rock the boat in ways that I don't really need. And so even if they're supportive, even and sometimes especially if they're believers, there's some fear around that and bringing it in. So what we found is you need to go first to the district level, either to the superintendent, or if the district has a process for reserving that space. And school districts do have a much better awareness of the law. They do have legal counsel on staff or on retainer. And so if we go to them first and the principal second, we've really found that then we can approach the principal in a way that's relational and just, hey, we'd like to introduce ourselves and this program to you. But the district is the one who's really granting the permission.
Absolutely. And you guys have indeed perfected relational ministry, Matt. That's one of the things I love about what Crossroads does. Speaking of this relational ministry, you guys have really, I think, cornered the market on getting to the kids inside public schools. What makes this method of gospel preaching, when we're talking about children in public schools, getting to them, what makes that more effective than perhaps other outreach methods, perhaps having them come to you? How can you differentiate between those?
Yeah. Well, great question. I mean, first of all, the opportunity to go into the school is huge. Yeah. It's 91% of kids in America are in a public school, and 80% of young people are not connected to a local church. Kids, as we know, especially between 4 and 14 years old, are the most receptive group to the gospel message and the least reached group. Right. And so this is a group, right? They don't drive. They're not making decisions about, I can go to this church or that church or this program or that. But they're in that school. Right. And so when their friends are going to this after school club, when they see that it's fun and there's this different things happening there, it's very accessible to them, and it's very easy for the parent because they don't have to drive them anywhere. Again, if we're thinking about non-Christian parents and families, what's the motivation for that parent to drive their kid at 6:30 on a Wednesday night to a midweek program? It's not there. But to sign a permission slip that, hey, my kid can stay after school in the gym for an hour and a half, yeah, I can do that, right? So we just have a much more access to the kids that are in the school, and by meeting them on their terms.
Absolutely. Matt, it does remind me of our Lord himself. I mean, Jesus did not say, hey, you guys come to me. He came to us, right? He came to us, born as a baby, lived as one of us, died and rose again. And I really do think that we can follow that method, Matt. That's awesome. Boy, we're coming to the end of our time here, brother. But real quickly here, I just want you to tell us, obviously it takes resources to make this happen. When listeners give to Crossroads Kids Club, especially for this campaign, where does that money go?
Yeah, so glad you asked that. Yeah. We're really focused. There are 3 foundational building blocks, and we're going to say they're A, B, C. And so the first is accessibility. Mm-hmm. So we are constantly working hard to make our material, our training accessible to more and more leaders so that we can reach more and more kids. So what does that mean? Putting it in different languages, offering it through our mobile application, allowing it to be flexible. The needs of an inner city school are very different from a rural school. So how can we make this program as accessible as possible to reach as many as possible? The B is boots on the ground. And we have regional coordinators that we're positioning around the country in different cities and even semi-rural contexts to build those relationships with local churches and schools and make those connections. And so when you give to Crossroads, you're funding that infrastructure to reach more kids in more places. And then the C, communication. How do we measure the impact on lives and then communicate that clearly?
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, we appreciate you so much, brother. Thank you for joining us today. It's an honor to come alongside you for this campaign. Folks, check him out at reachourschools.com.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically, go to timothyplan.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. And on top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn. The donations that you give actually make a difference. Last year, 59,000 babies were saved because of what you have done with your generosity.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Every day, a child walks into school carrying more than just a backpack. This child carries the weight of loneliness, fear, and uncertainty, and spiritual darkness. But there is hope.
Crossroads is amazing. You can learn all kinds of things about God. That He loves all of us. He pays for our sins.
This Easter, be part of God's rescue plan by helping a school-aged child out of the darkness. By sponsoring a child, you could help them discover Jesus and put them on a path to a better future. Our goal is for the FISM audience to sponsor 100 children. As an added bonus, a generous donor has pledged to match up to $35,000. This means your gift will go twice as far. Go now to reachourschools.com and bring the light of Christ into the life of a child. That's reachourschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
I hope you all enjoyed that interview with Matt Armstrong. It was great to have him on. Make sure to check out reachourschools.com once again. I appreciate all of you who have given any gift that you can give, folks. Even if it's a small gift, that's between you and the Lord. So whatever you can give, we'll appreciate that so very much. Again, $384 sponsors one child. So let's try to hit that 100 child goal. We're 15 children in. So we're on our way. We got a long way to go, though. So consider doing that today. Quickly here, folks, before we get to the ag report, I'll tell you what, let's take a look at the markets right now, and then we'll go to the ag here. All three major indices are pretty negative right now. They're not too pleased with the latest Trump tariff news. They were hoping perhaps for some kind of deal to be struck with Canada and or Mexico, and haven't seen that yet. So the Dow Jones is down 1.25%. The S&P is 1.5%, and the Nasdaq is over 1.75% in the negative. So as the markets have opened, that's what they're looking like here this morning. All right, let's get to the ag report today. Craig Haugaard for our farmers and ranchers giving us what we need to know. Here's Craig Haugaard, then we'll be back right after this.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Egg update for March 6th. Well, the corn market bounced yesterday, breaking the 8-day streak of lower closes. It seems as if a lot of the tariff risk is now priced into this market. As a result, May corn was 4.25 cents higher at $4.55 per bushel. Soybean prices appear to have found a bottom for the moment, as the market has run short of bearish news after Tuesday's tariff implementation. South America hasn't really been much of a headline grabber yet lately, but we did see a couple of private analysts cut their Brazilian soybean production estimates due to dry conditions in the south. Well, here in the U.S., processor bids are firming up as we continue to see a lack of farmer selling. That all combined to propel May beans to a $12.75 better close as they finished the day at $10.1175. The recent sell-off in U.S. wheat has had a dramatic impact on the pecking order in terms of the cheapest origin wheat. It looks as if the U.S. soft red winter wheat from a FOB value may be fighting with Argentinian wheat for the least expensive origin in the April, May, June time slot. Now, hopefully that's going to translate into some increased export business for the U.S. May wheat in Minneapolis futures closed 8 cents higher at $5.88. Kansas City was 8.5 cents better at $5.57. And with Chicago rising by 11.5 cents to close at $5.4825. Cotton futures paused their decline after their recent debacle. May futures ended the session up 43 points as we closed out the day at 63.67. Livestock futures showed black numbers straight across the board. April live cattle were $1.90 higher at $196.55 per hundredweight. April feeder cattle were $3.57.5 stronger as they closed out the day at $276.07.5 per hundred. And April lean hog futures rose by $2.35, closing the session at $84.70 per hundredweight. Class C milk futures saw their struggles continue as they set new life of contract lows. We had April futures down 25 points for the day, closing at $17.34. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Egg update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Thanks, as always, to Craig for his great wisdom and insight for the ag markets and for our farmers and ranchers there. Good to have them on the chat here. And good to see you all this morning as well. I did want to give a shout out. I forgot to mention Brian from Virginia earlier. Brian, I'm so sorry. Forgot to mention you on the chat. We have several Brians on the chat there, so good to see you guys. Lisa is saying, so when we think Seth went in the rapture, it's really a baby on the way. Yeah, Lisa, that's exactly right. If that's how it'll all turn out and the rapture were to happen, I would assume that I wouldn't be the only one going. There'd be a lot of blood-bought believers of Jesus going with me. So yeah, it is the baby on the way. No need to fear. Jason, good reminder. I got to have the phone on the desk. Yeah, I have it right here, man. I'm waiting for that call. I got a call from my wife yesterday during the workday, and I was like, is this it? And it wasn't it. So anyway, that's what we're looking at today. All right, Sam, let's look at some more of the headlines here that we have from the financial sector. We saw layoffs come in this morning. I think this is an interesting stat here. Why don't you give us this one? What do we got there?
Yeah, the numbers are quite shocking as job layoffs have reached pandemic-era levels, over 172,000 layoffs for the month of February. That's the highest level we've seen since July of 2020, so right at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. What's driving it, you ask? Well, lo and behold, more than a third of those layoffs came from government cuts. DOGE is hard at work slashing government employees, so the number of government jobs lost was around 62,000 jobs.
Yeah. You know, I'd love to hear from the chat. Tell me your thoughts here, and we'll let this run out through the rest of the show here. Chat listeners, is DOGE being too what would be the word, Sam? Like too overzealous in cutting people's jobs? Yeah, aggressive, or are they not being aggressive enough? I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because this is a topic that we talk about a lot, Sam, is, with what DOGE is doing from a 30,000 foot view, I'm excited about it, because I think over the last 4 years, we have seen a lot of useless government spending, which, as Shanna has talked about a lot, folks, that's a key in causing the economy to be bad, driving up inflation, different things like that. At the same time, I do want to admit and understand, and Sam, I think you'd agree with me on this, there are certain jobs in the government that are necessary, that shouldn't be cut. I think that's a good thing. I don't want every single job to be cut. I think we need certain things. Am I on base there, Sam, or am I just off my rocker here?
No, I think a little bit of government could be good here and there, but you got to remember, this is Elon Musk's whole MO when it comes to entering into a business. He slashes everything and then fixes it later. This is what he did when he bought Twitter. He came in, he basically fired everyone, leaving a skeleton crew to kind of figure out what was actually needed, and then he rehired as he went along. So it's like break it first, fix it later, especially with systems that just aren't working, which is certainly the case with the U.S. government.
Absolutely. You know, from a financial perspective, the U.S. government should be run like a business. That's actually part of why I think Donald Trump was such an attractive vote for so many people, is people knew he's going to run this like a business, which means efficiency. It means money is not being wasted, especially when it's our tax dollars. I don't want my tax dollars to be wasted on silly things. So I think sometimes people, Sam, you're exactly right. Like, they'll look at the government and they'll almost think because it's the U.S. government, it's exempt from being run like a successful business. I'm not sure why we think that. I think coming to a place where we can say, yeah, you know what, this is the way it's supposed to run for efficiency. And so he's doing this for efficiency, folks. Of course, we want to be mindful of the fact, like you mentioned, Sam, there are some government jobs that are necessary. There's some government jobs that are good. I like a strong military. I think that's a good thing. That's technically a government-funded, that's a taxpayer-funded job. You know, I would love to be able to have good, sound lawmakers and law keepers in our country. I think that's something really good. That's a government job. So excited about these DOGE cuts. It's not like we're just like, slash everything goes, and then it goes to anarchy. It's strategic cutting, Sam, right? And I think that's good. I think that's something we should be excited for.
100% on board with that, Seth.
Yeah,
yep,
for sure. So, well, Sam, let's move now. You know, we had mentioned this earlier. Several large businesses, because of the tariffs, have been moving production back to the U.S., and we saw one of them break yesterday. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, our friends over at Volvo, the car maker, says it is probably going to move to the U.S. to avoid Trump's impending tariffs on the EU. Exports of cars from Europe to the U.S. are currently only subject to a 2.5% tariff for right now, so that's pretty manageable, but that's likely to change. Trump has been suggesting as high as 25% tariffs, specifically on cars, and Volvo says if that's the case, it's going to be really difficult to make a profit, although they say that they have not made any decisions as of right now what they're officially going to do. They want to wait and see what the numbers are actually going to look like. I think they said, you know, a 10% tariff, we can probably handle that. 25, that's a no-go. We're going to have to radically change what we're doing. And of course, they're not the only ones. We've been mentioning all week long the different car makers who have been considering moving to the U.S. The latest is Stellantis, one of the big three automakers that was given the tariff reprieve from Donald Trump yesterday. They says they are definitely going to take that opportunity with that reprieve to ramp up production right here in the U.S.
Yep. Good stuff there, Sam. Thank you for that update. We'll jump back here real quick to the question I had asked. Many of you seem to be saying you want more cuts, which I expected. More government cuts. Need to be a little more aggressive there. Let's see here. Some of these. Let me read this here. Where is that? There was one good comment here I wanted to see. Yeah, George saying, no, do it now. Cut those now. Claude saying a little over aggressive by design, can always be added back if need demands. Claude, I think that's a good mindset there, keeping that understanding. Lisa, interesting comment about military being the biggest waste machine. I see what you're saying there. I don't want our government to fund foreign proxy wars that never end. What I was more talking about was we need a strong military from a defensive perspective. We need a strong military to make sure that our country's protected. You know, that's all that I'm saying. If you tear down the walls of your castle, you're exposed to the enemy. We need a strong military in that sense, not to go in and just do whatever we want and be the world police force on the world stage necessarily, but to be able to defend ourselves from foreign enemies because they're always out there. That's more what I was saying there. That is a good thought, though, for sure. Folks, to close our show here, let's move now. 1 Corinthians 12:9 says this, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. You know, it is a paradox, friends, when we consider all the other religions of the world. There is no boasting in weakness when you talk about other faiths. Christianity is the only one where we're not only allowed to do this, but in some sense encouraged to do this, boast in our weakness. Usually we're tempted to cover our weakness, ignore our weakness, hide our weakness, but we're told to boast in our weakness. Paul says this. Why does he say this? Because in our weakness, here's where we come face to face with what is true all along, that Christ is our strength. Whether you feel weak or not, Christ is always your strength. He's the source of power that you have, and he delights to use weak people to do great things. That's often how God works, isn't it? He uses the weak people to do great things. Hope that can be an encouragement for you today, folks. Great to be here with you all. Again, check out Crossroads Kids Club today at reachourschools.com. Consider making a donation to Crossroads Kids Club as part of our campaign with them to fund the light. Folks, it was great to be here with you. God bless you all. Remember, it's all his. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with what he has given to us. We'll see you next time on Financial Issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.